All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something literally every single one of us is feeling right now. It's quiet, it's not flashy, but man, it is everywhere. We're talking about the silent epidemic of everyday fatigue. We're going to break down exactly why we feel this way, what it means for us collectively, and just really dig into this exhaustion we all know way, way too well.
Think about it. When was the last time someone asked you, "Hey, how are you doing?" What did you say? Because there's this really fascinating, kind of wild observation about how we all greet each other now. Almost everyone defaults to the exact same phrase. Not okay, not bad, just tired, right? Tired isn't just what happens after a grueling day anymore. It's the baseline. It's how we start the day, it's the middle, it's the end. It's just this constant universal hum in the background of our lives.
Which brings us to Section 1, the universal background condition, that constant hum. And here's where things get truly strange. This profound, heavy fatigue, it's hitting people even when their lives are, objectively speaking, totally fine. We're talking about folks who have all their basic needs formally met. They're getting sleep, they have plenty of food, stable jobs, the whole shebang. By every logical metric, they should feel energized and secure, but they are absolutely wiped out. And this isn't the exhaustion you get from intense physical labor or, acute survival stress. This is fatigue functioning as a constant background condition in a life that, on paper, looks perfect. So let's move to Section 2, the modern comfort paradox, our modern reality. As modern humans, we are living squarely inside a massive paradox. On the one hand, we've got unprecedented access to just incredible advancements. Advanced medicine, abundant food, unbelievable physical comfort, relative stability. We literally live in an era designed from the ground up to make life easier. But our internal reality, it is telling a completely different story. Despite all these amazing external resources, the internal experience is just zero energy and chronic fatigue. We're wrapped in comfort, but we have absolutely no vitality. It's this profound, almost bizarre disconnect.
0%. You know that completely drained battery icon on your phone? That perfectly mimics how the modern human feels. Despite having access to all the medicine, food, and comfort the world has to offer, we are literally running on empty. And honestly, it's kind of validating to hear, isn't it? If you've been sitting in a cozy room with a full fridge and a secure job, and yet you feel completely devoid of power, well, you need to know this is exactly the paradox we're all facing. You're surrounded by resources, but internally, the charge is just completely gone.
That takes us to Section 3, the illusion of rest and why our recovery is failing. This whole situation builds into a very specific, inescapable loop that, let's be real, most of us are trapped in right now. Step 1, you wake up already tired. The day hasn't even started and you're already in an energy deficit. So step 2, because of that deficit, we survive on caffeine, just brute forcing our systems with artificial energy to hit a basic functional baseline. And then comes step 3, the most frustrating part, sleep without recovery. We finally crash, but we don't actually restore our energy. The rest we're getting is just an illusion. It's this exhausting hamster wheel where rest doesn't actually feel like rest anymore. And this brings us to a really profound validation. It is no longer the exception, it is the norm. If you're stuck in that endless cycle of waking up tired, heavily relying on caffeine, and sleeping without ever actually recovering, listen to me. It doesn't mean you're broken. Actually, scratch that. It doesn't mean you're failing at self-care at all. It simply means you are experiencing the new normal. This relentless tiredness, it's the standard operating procedure for the modern human being. Let's look at Section 4, a mass epidemic. Why this isn't just an individual problem. The absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer is this. Fatigue today is a mass condition. It's a global background condition. We really have to stop blaming our own individual choices. We've got to stop thinking, oh, if I just drank one less cup of coffee, or if I just went to bed exactly 15 minutes earlier, I'd be perfectly fine. No. When almost everyone is waking up tired and failing to recover despite having all their basic needs met, we're not looking at individual failings anymore. We are looking at a collective state that is affecting the general population. And that leaves us with a haunting but absolutely essential question to end on. If this isn't an individual failing, if it really isn't just you, what is the deeper physiological cause? Think about it. If our modern environment provides all the comfort, stability, and medicine we could possibly need, yet our collective batteries are permanently stuck at 0%, something systemic is going on underneath the surface. Our exhaustion is entirely real and it's entirely shared. But it leaves us with the ultimate question. What exactly is draining our energy so profoundly? Take a moment to sit with that as you go about your day. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hopefully this brought a little clarity to the tired world we're all navigating together.
All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever felt like your body is just humming? Like it's vibrating with this strange, exhausting energy, even when you're literally just sitting completely still on your couch? Well, today we're unpacking a fascinating breakdown of how our human organism operates on a fundamental binary system and exactly why that system is currently glitching out for so many of us.
You know, the sheer simplicity of our biology at its core is actually amazing. The human organism essentially lives in just two modes. On one side, we've got stress, which we can really just define as readiness for action. And on the flip side, we have recovery. Now, here is the baseline truth. In a normal, healthy state, these two modes absolutely must constantly alternate. Think of it like breathing, right? You inhale to prepare your body for action, and you exhale to rest and recover. It's this perfect, rhythmic biological pendulum that's designed to just swing naturally back and forth. But here's where we hit a massive roadblock. That baseline truth of our biology, it has been profoundly disrupted. The core problem of the modern era is that today, most of us almost never leave that readiness for action mode. We are basically stuck on the inhale. Just imagine holding your breath indefinitely while trying to go about your normal day. That is essentially what we are asking our biology to do right now.
Okay, so let's move into section 1, the modern disruption.
So, what is actually causing this massive biological traffic jam? Why is our internal alarm system just stuck in the always-on position? Well, it comes down to the environment we've built for ourselves. Constant notifications pinging in our pockets, buzzing on our wrists, the relentless information noise from endless feeds, the heavy, heavy demands of multitasking at work, and just enveloping all of that, the constant anxious background hum of the modern world. Every single beep, every breaking news headline, every unread message acts as a microscopic catalyst. Your brain doesn't see these as minor inconveniences, it perceives them as immediate demands for action. The urgency is constant, and it keeps your nervous system glitching in this red alert state of tension.
Which brings us to section 2, false threat mode. So, why is our internal alarm system blaring at full volume when we are, physically speaking, completely safe? It's because your physical body does not distinguish between a hungry predator in the wild and, a passive-aggressive email from a colleague named Dave. The reality is bizarre. The body feels absolutely zero real physical threat. You might literally be resting safely in a soft chair in a perfectly climate-controlled room, but your organism behaves entirely as if a physical attack is imminent. It's a false threat, sure, but the physical reaction generated by your body, that is 100% real. Let's dive into section 3, physiology of constant overload.
Now that we understand the environmental causes keeping us in this false threat mode, it's time to look directly beneath the skin. What are the actual, direct physical consequences? Well, we have specific bodily systems locked in constant tension. First up, your muscles. Because your brain thinks you need to literally fight or run from those emails and notifications, your muscles remain tightly wound. Second, your nervous system. It's chronically activated. It's firing signals nonstop without ever getting a chance to power down. And third, your hormones. You are constantly flooded with stress chemicals. All three of these systems are just locked in a state of chronic, unbreakable tension. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, but at least I catch up and reset when I go to sleep. Unfortunately, no. This chronic activation completely infiltrates our rest time too. Your sleep actually becomes superficial. And why is that? Because the organism simply fails to switch the gears into recovery mode. You close your eyes, but biologically speaking, your body is still sleeping with one eye open. It's burning energy completely inefficiently just to guard against those invisible, modern threats. And that brings us to a reality check that really anchors this entire concept. Quote, "This is no longer psychology, but the physiology of constant overload." Let that sink in for a second. We so often blame ourselves for feeling burnt out, right? We treat it as a mental weakness or just this heavy psychological burden that we just need to power through. But this reality reframes that exhaustion entirely. It is a stark mechanical failure of the body. Your biological machinery is being overworked by the environment. It's not in your head, it is pure physiology. Which leads us to our final, deeply important question for you to reflect on today. If your body never receives the signal that the danger has passed, how long until the system breaks? When your muscles, your nervous system, and your hormones are locked in this tension, you are experiencing a phenomenon where energy is being used completely inefficiently at the very cellular level, all just to maintain a false state of readiness. So, what happens next when that system finally gives out? I really want you to take away this understanding today. Your stress isn't just in your mind, it's a physical reality living in your biology. Thank you so much for exploring this with me, and I hope this helps you understand why finding a way to explicitly signal recovery to your body is more important now than ever before. You know, we are constantly told that being exhausted is basically a personal failing, that if you just, pushed a little harder, managed your time better, or just had a bit more willpower, you wouldn't feel so incredibly drained all the time. But what if your exhaustion literally has nothing to do with your character and absolutely everything to do with your chemistry? Today, we are going to look at the hard biological reality of why you are just so tired. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the core mystery we really need to solve. Your body is, theoretically at least, teeming with energy. You're consuming calories, you're breathing oxygen, your biological engines are running, the energy is there. Yet, despite having all this potential power stored up inside of you, you wake up feeling like you are completely running on empty. Why is that? Well, because producing energy and actually being able to use it are two completely different biological processes. Energy, as it turns out, actually has to be activated. So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the reality of modern fatigue, then look at unlocking energy with ATP, explore the modern magnesium deficit, break down the vicious stress cycle, and finally discuss why all of this is biology, not weakness. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the reality of modern fatigue and how we really need to completely reframe our understanding of exhaustion. Think about your own chronic burnout for a second. The brain fog, the heavy limbs, that 3 p.m. crash that just hits you like a ton of bricks. Society loves to frame this whole experience as a psychological failing. We're told it's just a lack of motivation. But we really need to ask ourselves, is fatigue a psychological failing? Or is it a quantifiable physiological reality? The source material we're digging into today firmly points to the latter. And honestly, it is incredibly freeing to realize that your lack of energy is not some sort of moral defect. It's a measurable biochemical state. Moving right along to Section 2, unlocking energy. Let's dive down into the microscopic level to look at the body's literal energy currency. So in the human body, energy equals ATP. ATP is the literal energy currency that your organism produces to fuel every single function. I mean, from blinking your eyes to running a marathon to simply thinking a thought. If your body is a bustling economy, ATP is the cash moving around keeping the whole shebang functioning. But here's the critical distinction we have to make. Just because you have currencies sitting in the bank doesn't mean you can actually spend it, especially if, say, the bank teller is on a permanent lunch break. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast in how your body handles this energy. Look, without magnesium, your body still produces energy, but it's used far less efficiently. It is exactly like having a massive vault full of millions of dollars, but you just don't have the key or the PIN code to actually open the door. You're incredibly wealthy in theory, but completely broke in practice. But with magnesium, you get the complete picture. Magnesium acts as that literal activation key. It actually binds to the ATP, unlocks the vault, and allows your cells to finally spend that energy currency. So the absolutely crucial point here, this fundamental biological fact, is that magnesium supports cellular energy usage. Without it, the ATP is sitting right there, but the engine just won't turn over. This microscopic partnership is exactly what dictates whether you feel vibrant and alive or sluggish and completely drained, which naturally brings us to a massive societal level problem. Let's zoom back out to Section 3, the modern magnesium deficit. We really have to ask ourselves, where on earth did the key go? Seriously, if magnesium is this essential key to unlocking our biological energy, why are so many of us walking around with locked vaults? Why, seemingly all of a sudden in modern history, are our bodies suddenly lacking this crucial activation key? Well, the source material points to a dual front war on our magnesium levels. First off, our food has just simply become poorer in magnesium. Decades of really aggressive agricultural practices have led to major soil depletion. Actually, it's wild. You would literally have to eat significantly more vegetables today just to get the exact same mineral content your grandparents got back in the 1950s. Add to that the fact that modern food processing physically strips away the remaining nutrients just to make things shelf-stable.
But, it's not just what's happening outside of us, it's what's happening inside. High stress actively increases your biological consumption of magnesium. Your body is basically burning through its reserves just trying to keep you calm.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terrible, almost inescapable math of modern life. We have inadvertently designed a lifestyle that drastically increases the demand for magnesium through our chronic stress, while simultaneously decreasing the supply through depleted, overprocessed food. We're literally burning the candle at both ends. And the result? A systemic lack of the very molecule we need to access our own energy. That math problem leads us directly into our next critical concept in Section 4, the vicious stress cycle. It's a biological loop that traps so many of us. Let's walk through this relentless feedback loop step by step, because it just perfectly explains the downward spiral of burnout. Okay, step 1. You experience stress, which immediately spikes your body's consumption of magnesium. Step 2. Because you're burning through it so fast, your overall magnesium levels drop. Now, step 3 is where the trap really springs. A lack of magnesium means your nervous system physically loses its ability to cope with stress. It becomes fragile, hyperreactive. Which leads right to step 4. This biological inability to handle stress generates even more stress, shooting you right back to step 1 to burn through whatever magnesium you might have left. It's just a compounding physiological trap. Your declining resilience actually accelerates your depletion, which brings us to our 5th and final section, biology, not weakness. Let's pull all of this together and look at the actual physical reality of your exhaustion. Now, I want to be super clear about what the source material states regarding magnesium and energy metabolism. It is absolutely not a magic pill, right? There are no overnight cures for chronic fatigue. However, it is one of the foundational, absolute key factors in your body's energy exchange. You just cannot fix the superstructure of your health if the chemical foundation is cracked. Understanding this specific biochemical exchange is really the required first step to addressing that chronic, lingering burnout. So let this really sink in for a second. Fatigue is not always weakness. Often it is pure biology. It's a locked vault of ATP. It's depleted soil. It's a nervous system caught in a self-draining stress loop. Letting go of the guilt surrounding your exhaustion is honestly the first step toward actually solving it. You don't need more willpower. You need to address your biochemistry. So, I want to leave you with this final thought today. If your exhaustion isn't a life sentence of laziness, but rather just a locked vault of potential energy waiting inside your cells, what steps will you take today to finally find your key? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.